Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So we are reading Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. The chapter is titled as Struggling Alone. So Prabhupada ji, when he arrived in America, initially stayed in Butler, and then he moved to New York, where he was staying with Dr. Mishra. Dr. Mishra was a doctor by profession, but then he later on gave up his profession and became a yoga teacher. And he was helping Srila Prabhupada. So here it is written, Srila Prabhupada considered Dr. Mishra a Mayavadi because of his inadvertent acceptance that Maya, illusion, is greater than absolute truth. So some features of some qualities of Dr. Mishra. Dr. Mishra did not think that there is a creator. He thought that this creation itself is everything. So he considered Maya as greater than the creator. For Srila Prabhupada, not only was the impersonal philosophy unpalatable, it was an insult to the personality of Godhead. According to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 24th shloka, and 9th chapter, 11th shloka, it is said, unintelligent man who knows me not think that I have assumed this form and personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is changeless and supreme. Fools deride me when I appear in this human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. So sometimes fools, when Lord Krishna appears in the human form, these fools, mudha, avajananti mama mudha, these mudha who do not know that Lord has appeared in the form of a human being, they think that Lord is also ordinary, like one of us. And they do not consider Lord as a supreme personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya had also strongly refuted the Mayavadi philosophy. Everything about Supreme Personality of Godhead is spiritual, including his body, his opulence, and paraphernalia. Mayavadi philosophy, however, covers his spiritual opulence and advocates the theory of impersonalism. So Mayavadis do not believe that Lord has form. God comes in the form of a human being. But then these Mayavadis, they think that this form is like ordinary form, which is not so. It is transcendental, it is spiritual. It is merging into existence. Liberation means denying one's individual existence. In other words, it is a kind of a spiritual suicide. It is absolutely opposed to the philosophy of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga offers immortality to individual conditioned souls. If one follows Mayavad philosophy, he misses his opportunity to become immortal after giving up the material body. In other words, Lord Chaitanya, in the words of Lord Chaitanya, Mayavadi Krishna Aparadhi, Mayavadi impersonalists are great offenders of unto Lord Krishna. Thus, Chaitanya had concluded that if one even hears the commentary of Shankara, one's entire spiritual life is spoiled. Dr. Mishra was content to align himself with the philosophy of Shankaracharya and allow Prabhupada to stay with Lord Krishna and Bhagavad Gita. So this detail about Mayavadi philosophy, they are great offenders to Lord Krishna because they do not consider Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This Dr. Mishra was one of them. But Srila Prabhupada pointed out that even Shankaracharya accepted the personality of Godhead, Krishna or Narayana, who exists eternally beyond the material world. Therefore, he is transcendental person. Narayana Para Avyakta. A mendicant, Prabhupada was temporarily dependent on goodwill of his Mayavadi acquaintance, with whom he regularly ate and conversed, and from whom he accepted the shelter. But what a great inconvenience it was. He had come to America to speak purely and boldly about Krishna, but he was being restricted. So Prabhupada came to America to spread Krishna consciousness, but this Mayavadi uh, Dr. Mishra was giving him the shelter, so Srila Prabhupada was restricted by this Mayavadi philosopher or yogi. So he did not allow Srila Prabhupada to speak about Lord Krishna. In Butler, he had been confined by his host's middle class sensibilities. Now he was silenced in a different way. He was treated with kindness, but he was considered a threat. Dr. Mishra could not allow his students to hear exclusive praise of Lord Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Srila Prabhupada, when tried to teach about Lord Krishna, Dr. Mishra did not allow to Srila Prabhupada. Spending most of his time in his new room, Srila Prabhupada kept his typing and translating. But when Dr. Mishra held his yoga classes, Prabhupada would sometimes come out and lead kirtan and or a lecture. So during the yoga class, Prabhupada was given a chance to lead kirtan or some lecture. Robert Nilsson, one of Prabhupada's first young sympathizers in New York, he says, I went to Dr. Mishra's service and Dr. Mishra talked. Swamiji was sitting on a bench and then all of a sudden Dr. Mishra stops the service and he gets a big bell, he gets a big smile and says, Swamiji will sing us a song. I think Dr. Mishra would not let him speak. Somebody told me Dr. Mishra did not want him to preach. So this is how it is. So Robert Nilsson said that Dr. Mishra would not allow him to speak at all. Every morning, several hours before dawn, Srila Prabhupada would rise, take his bath, chant Hare Krishna on his beads, and work at his translating, while outside his closed in, windowless chamber, dawn came and city awoke. He had no stove, so daily he had to walk 7 blocks to the riverside apartment, cook there, and walk all the way in the winter to the yoga studio back. So that was a hassle for Srila Prabhupada. This is unbelievable. Instead of small town scenery of the Butler, he passed through the rows of 30-story office buildings on the Columbus Avenue. At the street level were shoe repair shops, candy stores, laundries, and continental restaurants. The upper stories had held the professional suits of doctors, dentists, and lawyers. At 75th Street, he would turn west and walk through a neighborhood of brownstone apartments, and then across Amsterdam to Broadway with its Central Island Park. The greenery here would be more accurately be described as blackberry, since it was covered with soot and city grime. Broadway displayed its produce shops and butcher shops, with their stands extending into the sidewalks, and old man, sat on the benches in the thin strip of park between the northbound and the southbound traffic. The last block on 75th before the riverside held high-rise apartment building with the doorman standing. 33 Riverside also had a doorman. Sometimes Prabhupada would walk in the riverside park. Still careful for the condition of his heart, he liked the long stretch of flat walking area. Sometimes he would walk from Dr. Mishra's studio down 70 2nd Street to Amsterdam Avenue to the West End Superette, where he would buy produce and spices for his cooking. Sometimes he would wander through the Manhattan without any fixed direction, and sometimes he would take buses to the different areas of the city. On the weekend, Prabhupada would accompany Dr. Mishra to his Ananda ashram, 1 hour north of the city in Monroe, New York. John Sewell, who used to drive them, would overhear their animated conversations in the back seat of her car. Although they spoke in Hindi, she could hear the discussion turn into loud, shouting arguments. Afterwards, they would again become friends. At Ananda Ashram, Prabhupada would usually hold kirtan with Dr. Mishra's students, joining him in chanting and even in dancing. Dr. Mishra was particularly fond of Prabhupada's chanting. Ramamurthy Mishra. Dr. Mishra says, I have never seen or met any devotee who sang so much. And his kirtan was such for just ambrosial. If you pay attention and become relaxed, that voice has very electrical vibrations on your heart. You cannot avoid it. 99% of the students, whether they liked it or not, got up and danced and chanted. I felt very blessed to meet such a great soul. So, Dr. Mishra used to say that Srila Prabhupadaji's voice had this devotional touch. So that's why all the students, when Srila Prabhupada sang Kirtan, all the students of Dr. Mishra used to dance during the Kirtan. So that's what it says. Harvey Cohen says, a visitor to Ananda Ashram, everyone got up early and went to the morning meditation. Dr. Mishra was dressed in a golden Indian style jacket, and his students were already deeply into it when I entered the room. All the cushions were taken, so I picked up a spot in the back of the room where I could lean against the wall to facilitate my meditation. Seated at one side was an older Indian man in saffron cloth and wrapped in a pinkish wool blanket. He seemed to be muttering to himself, and I later discovered that he was praying. It was Swami Bhaktivedanta. His forehead was painted with a white V-shaped sign, and his eyes were half shut. He seemed very serene. Harvey tried, but he could not do the Raj Yoga. He was new to Ananda Ashram and had only come up for a weekend to retreat. During his morning meditation, he found himself more attracted to the green mist above the lake outside the window than to the circle on the wall he was supposed to be meditating on. So, Srila Prabhupada's stay at yoga studio is described here in these few paragraphs, and how difficult it was for Srila Prabhupada to stay there, travel all the way, cook and come back, and the restrictions on him by Dr. Mishra for not allowing him to speak about Lord Krishna. But then Srila Prabhupada was allowed to chant, and then chanting of Prabhupada was magical, which made everybody to dance. So we'll pause here and we'll continue next time when we meet.